Chat. I have no idea if this is recorded, so maybe it is. Maybe. We're gonna find out. Let's see. Oh, wow. Okay.
Check.
Okay. Excellent. Now, I am live. I've just verified it. Okay. So let's go. I'm not gonna turn on the webcam. It was really messing with things earlier. So we're just gonna do screen stuff. So, please bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Just one moment. Just one moment, please. Alright, so check this out. I was looking at this stuff today on a YouTube channel. Imagine that. And it was about China having 600 million people. Instead of how many you think. And just bear with me a second. I've got to take these out. Since I know that I'm recording, I'm just going to take the earbuds out. There we go. Alright. That's so much better. uh, yeah. So, oopsies. Now, if China, if you are watching, I'm just making an observation. Don't come at me, bro. This is what I was watching here. Only 600 million people left in Gina by the Gina Observer. This is a pretty good sized channel. They've got 700 something thousand subscribers. Good job, Gina Observer. So I decided to look into this, and really and truly, on my home landing page, just on the blank DuckDuckGo page, this was on it. So I clicked on it and went because I noticed that China has granted the United Kingdom and Canada visa-free entry, raising the total to 79 countries. Now, I don't really keep up with what's going on in China. How could we? We're not there. But apparently, and I didn't know this, but in the U.S., if you're just going through there for 10 days in transit, then you can go in there as long as you're just passing through. But in most European countries, you qualify for visa-free entry into China, along with select countries in other regions, including Latin America, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. So they've got this opened up. So that made me wonder about the 600 million deal, right? Because these folks claim, and there were a lot of videos of empty streets and a whole lot of Chinese people speaking in Chinese and being translated into English about their businesses doing badly and not making money. And if you'll forgive me for making an observation, it sounds pretty familiar to what we're going through over on this side of the realm. And 20% drop in tobacco. That's wild. 20% drop in tobacco. 30 to 40% in other areas. The tobacco shops closed. Something like 300,000 tobacco shops. That's wild. There's like 18,000. I looked all this stuff up earlier when I was looking into this. Let's see how many tobacco shops are in the U.S. I believe it was 18,000 earlier today, according to Search Assist. Yeah, see, 18,000. Now, how many closed? How many closed in 2025 in China? YouTube thing was saying 360,000, I believe. Everything, a whole bunch of nerd stuff. Come on, come on. Okay, well, according to these numbers and those numbers there that I was just saying couldn't possibly be right. We're not going back. This is not the one I watched. It wasn't that one either. It was new, but it wasn't a minute long. But that part doesn't matter because I started looking into it. All right, so they opened it up to UK and Canada to visit visa free. Reportedly, as of 2025, China's population is approximately 1.404 billion, making it the second most populous country in the world after India. The population has been declining due to low birth rates and an aging demographic. Source Wikipedia, which is only as good as we make it, right? Now, that's their official information from China. And we know that approximately half of the people who are no longer with us from China are cremated. Approximately half of the 10 million people who die each year in China are cremated. Now, you could also look at that around 5 million people are cremated. Maybe that's half of the people, maybe that's more than half, maybe that's less than half of the people who die. Only 10 million people, 1 billion people? Really? Uh, okay. Okay, China. Let's see. This is a graph of China's population from 1960 to 2020. Now, if you'll pardon me, I'm drinking some water. In 2023, it fell 2.1 million on scary sniffles and low birth rate, according to Fortune magazine. Now, this is an article, a blog from Ovex News by John Digweed. It's a great name. From July 24, 2025. Questioning. And just ask some questions. Because the official population figures have long been a cornerstone of its image as a global superpower, with the National Bureau of Statistics reporting 1.408 billion people in 2024. Now, this is according to John Digweed. So, shout out to this guy. Alright? I don't know how reputable OVX News is, and it is a blog, so that is implied to be within editorial sphere, right? But it does cite statistical information from them, alright? And also, just full disclosure, this was used to help with the analysis. The A1 steak sauce that's taking over everyone's burger plate, if you're picking up what I'm throwing down, suggests that China's true population could be as low as 6 to 800 million. 37 to 50% less than reported. Now, why would they make this claim? Well, it's a cornerstone of its image as a global superpower, and also it gets a lot of incentives politically because there's so many people, and that would mean that there's this many less people, then there's less poverty, right? I mean, there's less scarcity. If there's less people, there's less scarcity. Maybe not less poverty, but theoretically there would be less scarcity of everything, resources, if there were 37 to 50% less people. Now, this claim is backed by the demographer, Uh, I'm not even gonna butcher it. You know what? I am gonna butcher it because that looks fun. It's called known as this demographer is known as Ye Fuxian. And a compare. Apologies. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dr. Fuxian. And a comparative study of fertility rates points to a demographic crisis far worse than is admitted. If true, it could explain China's faltering economy, from weak consumer spending to shuttered kindergartens, and reshape our understanding of its global influence. But it's his estimate. But is this estimate credible, or is it an overreach? Let's dive into the numbers, the methodology, and the implications. As Dennis said on Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's the implication. It's the implication. Sorry, that was weird. So the official narrative versus the numbers. China's population has been a point of pride, cementing its status as the world's second most populous nation after the Indians overtook it in 2023. The official data pegs the 2024 population at 1.408 billion, down slightly from 1.41 billion, with a birth rate of 6.77 per thousand. 1408. Isn't that a number? It doesn't matter. People in a total for a birth rate of 6.77 people per 1,000 and a total fertility rate of 1.09. Whispers of doubt have grown louder because demographer Dr. Fuxian here, a scientist at the university. Dr. Fuxian, a scientist at the University of Wisconsin Madison, has long argued that China's censuses are seriously overestimated, with local governments incentivized to inflate figures for funding. Imagine that. I mean, even Dr. Fuxian. It's like, yo, I may be but a humble demographer. My dad, Dr. Fuxian Sr., he might have chopped wood in the wherever's, but I'm here in Madison. I'm here in the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Go cheeseheads or whatever. And we don't believe that shit. And I, res- respected demographer and scientist from the University of Wisconsin Madison, Ye Fuxian, have long argued that China's censuses are seriously overestimated, with local governments incentivized to inflate figures for funding. Sort of reminiscent of leering centers, right? A new analysis using A1 steak sauce to model population trends claims the real number could be 890 million or even as low as 695 million when adjusted for the venerable, respected, very talented demographer scientist from University of Wisconsin-Madison, Dr. Yi Fuxian. It's lower fertility estimates. I'm sorry, I can't resist, man. The methodology is straightforward but revealing. Comparing China and their neighbor here from 1990 to 2020, the analysis starts with official population figures. In 1990, the population was 1.13 billion. Interesting number. 270 million more than India's 860 million. By 2020, China's official count was 1.41 billion, still slightly ahead of India's 1.38 billion. But fertility rates tell a different story. India's average TFR over this period was 2.97, nearly 3 children per woman, while China's was 1.7, heavily constrained by the one child policy from 1980 to 2015. 13. So I was born in 81, and the whole time coming up that they ever talked to us about China, it was all about that one child policy because there were so many Chinese. This was just what we were told. All right, so just don't come at me. So you roll. There were so many Chinese that they could only have one child, and it was even said, and you can take this or leave it. 'Cause I don't give one. I don't give any Dr. Futsians about it. All right, because that's what they told us. They also would say that potentially there might be some taken out of the equation, some of the girl children that were born because of them being girls. And again, 1980. I was born in 81. So this one child policy would indicate to me at least, I mean, it takes two people to make a kid. So if you're only making one kid instead of two kids, then you're not at replacement rate. You're not at replacement rate, right? So with India's higher fertility, again, theirs was 2.97 versus 1.7, so almost two higher than, I mean, come on, man. Come on now. With India's higher fertility, its population should have surpassed China's long ago. So mathematically, the official numbers don't add up. So somebody's lying. Somebody's numbers are off. Somebody's made a mistake. Those are our options. Don't want to accuse anybody of outright lying. That's just one of the options. The numbers could be wrong, you know, or our simple understanding of what numbers are could be wrong. I don't know. Now, using the Charger GT, this analyst, I'm assuming, one demographer and scientist from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Yi Fuxian, modeled the population growth based on these fertility rates starting from 1990 baselines. So by 2020, India's population aligned closely with the official figures, 1.38 versus 1.33, 4% discrepancy. But China was estimated at 890 million. That's 520 million less than the official 1.41 billion, a 37% overstatement. So when the venerable and respected scientist and demographer from University of Wisconsin-Madison, Dr. Yi Fuxian's TFR estimate of 1.1 was applied, the figure dropped to 695 million, less than half the official count. These gaps raise a critical question. How could China's population remain so high with such a low fertility rate? The A1 stakes also offer three explanations for the discrepancy: life expectancy, migration, and population momentum. So, life expectancy. Again, this is all according to the blog from Ovex News from Dick Jackweed. Sorry, John John Dickweed. Sorry. Um, so, life expectancy. The life expectancy rose from 68 to 78. So there'd be an estimated 42 million people. Interesting number. Jumping India's went from 58.6 to 70.2, giving 47 million. But that's just only a fraction of the 520 million person gap, right? That's 42 million is not even 10% of this yet. These guys had a larger life expectancy increase, and they showed no similar discrepancy, suggesting that that's not the driver. Migration. 500 million people. That's more than we got here. Have migrated to or from China. Uh, while there is a significant workforce, the net international migration is negligible. So, no. Population momentum. The A1 stakes also suggested that the 1990s population, driven by earlier high fertility, sustained growth despite low recent birth rates. But India, with similar momentum and higher fertility, didn't show the same overstatement. This explanation falters. Because they both have declining numbers. But as you can see, One's numbers didn't deviate that much from what was expected. So we have overstated data from potential political manipulation as a concession of the cause by the A1 Stakes Halls. Dr. Yifuxian argues local governments inflate figures to secure funding, which makes sense. I mean, if you've ever heard of if you've ever seen the episode of The Office where they have the surplus, Michael Scott has to figure out what the hell to do with the money. He can, what is it? He can buy a chair for Pam, or else he can get a copying machine for everybody, or else he can just do neither one of those and keep what is this, like 13% of the amount of money, and they bust him because they all know that Michael Scott's an idiot. And Oscar's like, Michael, what's 13% of 2040 or whatever? And Michael's like, oh, it's this much. And they're like, how'd you know, Michael? Because that's how much he would get. So he knew the number. So they busted him. Well, there you go. Secured the funding because they told him if he didn't spend the money, then he gave it back. Then they give him less money next year because they think he didn't need as much. Now imagine the opportunity of a place that's undergoing massive record levels of economic development and societal development and climbing up out of what we considered third world status up till the 90s, and that there's all this money suddenly available. If it just has the right place to go to and the right amount of people to say that they need it, then you can write your own check. Now, we come to this and these. Now, according to X, there are claims that Gina lost 2 to 600 million people from the scary, scary sniffles. Now, if that were the case, and they had already. Uh-oh. What did I do? Retro Spaghetti-O. There we go. Where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Where? Here we go. Now let's lowball it. Now let's highball it. These numbers are if you were to take. Where are we? Where's that? If you took the 14 or the 1.4, where is it? 1.4 billion. Come on now, where are you? God, I'm so stupid. Oh, there we are. So if you took this, and this is what it estimated it at, okay, from what they said it was. So let's say it was 890 million, and then they lost 600 million. Like there's almost no one, and even if they lost this many, they'd still be down to the lowest end of the estimates. We're never gonna know what the real numbers were. The critics, Fing Wang, suspicious name. I prefer Dr. Fuxian if you ask me. Disputes this, but there are economic indicators. And some of these economic indicators bolster the case for a smaller population. Now we know about economic indicators, right? They don't directly specify any one specific strongly suggested situation. They're just indicators. You take this one and you take this one and this one, and what do they mean together? It's taking longer to get something, and there's less of something available, and the cost of it has also went up. Now, what does all of that mean? You know, does it mean that there's going to be a shortage? Well, maybe not, but it means that there's some economic indicators, right? Well, an economic indicator here, weak consumer spending. The Chinese for many years in the 21st century part of the story was talked about having a massively expanding and growing economy and a brand new middle class and lower class and upper class of people who were coming into their own, that had never been exposed to having the opportunity to be consumers or whatever. So the story goes, the stuff they make is now stuff they can buy. But if they can't even afford to buy their stuff, then what are they living for? What are they doing? It's the same argument with if AI replaces all of our jobs, so none of us are making any money anymore. Then who buys the shit at the dollar store, right? Well, obviously no one buys it, right? And that's what's going on here. Weak consumer spending, falling real estate prices, 20% drop in kindergarten enrollment. That's significant, fellas and lady fellas. China's investment-driven economy masked this decline until recently as population losses from the 2000s only now impact consumer spending as that generation reaches adulthood. So though their kids are now grown and they're not spending, it's the same thing we see here. Alcohol sales are down, bar stuff is down. There's the men's right and the fourth or eighth wave feminism or whatever movements are going on to try and distract from the idea that everything is in a stagnation situation. And trust me, you don't want to go to the club because it sucks and you have to buy all the women drinks there and they're not going to do anything for you. And if you're a woman, you don't want to go to the club because the men are just going to not want to buy your drinks and they're going to want you to put out, right? But the truth is, nobody's just going out and drinking as much. The drinking generation has aged out from nightlife by and large. I mean, the young folks aren't drinking that much alcohol. And COVID really messed that up. A lot of places that had alcohol stopped having alcohol because they didn't have people to come in and sit down anymore. And late night clubs, I mean, I quit going to the bar a long time before COVID, but why would you even want to go now? There were clubs and places you couldn't go into unless you took the freaking shots, man. I mean, maybe not in Alabama where I'm at, but it was a thing. Could still be a thing in some places. I don't know because I'm not there. My point is this: economic indicators, weak consumer spending. They make all the stuff in the dollar store and Walmart, and they don't have the capability to be strong consumers. Right there where it's being made at. Falling real estate prices. 20% drop in kindergarten enrollment. That's significant. That's significant. Now there are counter arguments. Feng Wang, sociology professor at UC Irvine, argues that there's no evidence for a 100 million person overcount, citing 3 censuses since 2000. Official data, while imperfect, is supported by multiple sources, including the UN and IMF, which estimate China's 2024 population at 1.408 to 1.426 billion. Now, we don't trust the UN or the IMF or China, so I'm not real sure, Dr. Feng Wang, if that is your real name, or if you're even a doctor, unlike my boy up here, demography expert, scientist from University of Wisconsin-Madison, Dr. Yi Fuxian. Shit. That's the person I'm listening to. I'm sorry, you guys. That's my dude right there. Because we sure don't trust the blue helmets, and we sure don't trust the three-letter agencies. And Gina, come on now. Come, my lady. You're my butterfly. Sugar baby. I'm not sure why it has to go why there has to be a duality between there either being a gradual decline or a catastrophic drop. It's not a catastrophic drop that's being implied here is, and it's not a 100 million person overcount either. And that's what makes this convenient, because in this criticism, this critic named Fing Wang argues that there's no evidence for a 100 million person overcount. Which may be 100% correct. Touche, Fing Wang, because Yi Fuxian et al. And company are arguing for a much higher than 100 million person overcount, and not simply a catastrophic drop. It's a misrepresentation. Skeptics also point to China's urbanized trends: 943.3 million urban residents in 2024. Okay. Vaccination records, school enrollments. Okay, but what about the 20% drop in kindergarten? The claim of 6 to 800 million relies heavily on Yi's, that's Yi Fuxian, 1-to-1 TFR estimate, which contradicts official figures of 1.5 to 1.7 post 2000. Without broader corroboration, it remains speculative. Fair enough, speculative. You know, young folks are going to do what young folks are going to do. I'm going to just throw that out there. If they're there, they party. I'm just saying. You know it. I know it. Statistically, a bunch of y'all are young folks, so you know this. Now, if China's population is indeed 6 to 800 million, then they're staggering. Because that means people are doing twice as much work than we know about. But also, there's half as many people, so that's a thing. A smaller workforce and consumer base, which train an already indebted economy. Local governments facing rising elderly care costs for 3.10 to 0.31 million. That's an interesting bunch of numbers. 310 million people over 60. There's as many people over 60 as there are in America. That's interesting. Projected to hit 400 million by 2035. Wow. Their pension system could collapse by 2035. There's shrinking youth demographics, so childcare and education industries would be gutted. Diminished population undermines superpower ambitions. Okay, well, that's all well and good. However, even at 1.4 billion, China still faces a demographic crisis and a gender imbalance. The 2 and 3 child allowances have failed to reverse the decline, and pronatalist measures like cash incentives show limited impact. A population half the official size would amplify these challenges, making China's global influence evident in its arms exports and economic partnerships far less sustainable. There's that word. So you get at the bottom of the article, and it more or less says that it lacks evidence, lacks robust evidence, which doesn't mean that it doesn't have evidence. It's just not what this person would characterize as robust. Now, I think that Yi Fuxian's research highlights some very important discrepancies that if we could look into, improve one way or the other, it could assuage people's worries about some things, maybe. I don't know. Danny Jones from Tool. Interesting. Now, these skeptics, the critics, they raise a good point that the UN and the IMF and China agree with these numbers. And if we're going to call the blue helmets and the three letters and China, if we're going to call them subject matter experts and we're going to rely on what they say as the rule, then I suppose case closed, right? Case closed. Look, there's the numbers right there, and that's what they are, and that's what they said they are, and that's what they are, and that's just what it is, right? Case closed. However, it's worth thinking about. We'll never know the answer. Anybody want to go count? Because I don't. I just thought this was interesting because it was popping up in my YouTube feed, and it was real easy to look up. And at the same time that it was real easy to look up, it's numbers that you will never ever be able to prove one way or the other, and you just have to go off of it. So there's that. So yeah, there's that. All right. Well, anyways, I don't even know how this is. I don't know if how this is going to turn out. It might sound like garbage. If you stuck around this long, then you're a trooper. And yeah, I hope y'all liked it. And go ahead and hit me with a subscribe and a like and a comment. Go ahead and do that. I give you a couple of seconds to do that, and we'll talk about this picture here. I took this picture, and as you can see, this is the sun behind a cloud. Now I mirrored the picture down the vertical middle here. I mirrored it so that half of the picture is actually the picture, and 50% of the picture is the mirror, right? So at the top, coming down, you can see the face. You can see the little face. Maybe even some like chesticles. I don't know, man. But like you can see the face right there. There's eyes and a nose. And if you come on down, like there's like a sloth face, and there's also like it's kind of like a person with praying hands and wings. And then there's like a Indian style guy, and there's a cat face down about there, and there's like a Wario. There's a Wario face. There's just faces all the way down the middle of this thing. It's really cool. And if you like that, then you can take pictures yourself with your camera. And I set up a macro on the thing on the iPhone where you can program it to like do stuff in sequence. I forget what that thing's called, but anyways, I set up a thing on that would take after I took the picture, it would take it and mirror it, and then combine that, and then show it so that it would just do it for me. And this is what I got out of it. I made a whole pile of them. It's pretty cool, man. You should give that a try. You'll be surprised what you see. It don't have to be the sky. I imagine trees. If you took a picture of a bunch of leaves, that'd probably look pretty neat. Or the grass. You could mirror the grass. And it'd probably have some dirt or even water. Imagine you get all kind of faces off of all that stuff. And yeah, give that a shot. It's pretty fun. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And come back and see me some more. It was fun talking. I hope it was fun listening. Yeah. So